Imagine this. A quiet suburban street shatters into chaos as two self-appointed HOA enforcers, badges flashing like cheap Halloween props, corner a terrified 16-year-old girl in her own driveway. They grab her, slam her against the car, and in a brutal twist fracture 6 bones in her fragile back, all over a misplaced mailbox flag. But her dad, a battle-hardened Navy SEAL fresh from deployment, rounds the corner just in time. His training kicks in like a reflex from hell. Without a word, he draws his legally carried sidearm and unleashes a hail of warning shots that send those fake cops scrambling for their lives. What happens when a warrior dad turns the tables on neighborhood tyrants? You won't believe the fallout. This is the story that will have you raging and cheering all at once. Stick around. Hey everyone, if you've ever dealt with nightmare neighbors or power-tripping HOAs that make your blood boil, smash that like button right now to show your support, and hit subscribe for more insane real-life drama like this every week. We drop fresh stories that expose the Karens and save the underdogs. Turn on notifications so you never miss the chaos, and let's dive into this one together. It was a sweltering Friday afternoon in the manicured hellscape of Willow Creek Estates, the kind of HOA-ruled suburb where every blade of grass had to bow at exactly 2 inches, or face the wrath of the Covenant Police. The neighborhood association here wasn't just a bunch of busybodies. It was a full-blown militia of retired accountants and Botoxed housewives who patrolled the cul-de-sacs like they owned the souls of every resident. Fines for unapproved bird feeders, liens for faded welcome mats. It was a pressure cooker of petty tyranny, and everyone knew to keep their heads down or risk becoming the next target. But for the Harlan family, that invisible line had just been crossed without them even realizing it. Mark Harlan pulled his dusty Ford F-150 into the driveway after a grueling shift at the local warehouse, his broad shoulders aching from lifting crates that felt heavier with each passing year. At 42, he was a ghost of the man who'd stormed beaches in the Persian Gulf and dodged IEDs in the sandbox, a Navy SEAL with 16 years of service etched into his veins like invisible tattoos. Retirement hadn't softened him. If anything, coming home to civilian life had sharpened his instincts, turning every creak in the floorboards into a potential threat. His wife, Lisa, was inside whipping up meatloaf, the scent wafting through the screen door like a promise of normalcy. And their daughter, Emily, she was the light of it all, 16 years old, with her mom's freckles and dad's unyielding spirit, captain of the JV soccer team, dreaming of vet school because she couldn't stand seeing anything hurt. Emily had just gotten home from practice, her ponytail still damp with sweat, backpack slung over one shoulder as she fumbled with the mailbox. The flag was up. She'd forgotten to lower it after grabbing the latest issue of National Geographic, the one with the baby elephant on the cover that made her eyes light up. In Willow Creek, that was a cardinal sin. Visible flags after 3 p.m. could detract from curb appeal, punishable by a $50 fine and a stern letter from the board. She laughed it off, shaking her head at the absurdity as she reached up to flip it down. That's when they appeared, like vultures descending on roadkill, driving a nondescript white Prius with magnetic HOA patrol signs slapped on the doors. Karen Whitaker and her sidekick, Brenda Voss, were the unofficial enforcers of the realm. Karen, mid-50s with a helmet of ash blonde hair and a visor that screamed, "I lunch at the club," had clawed her way to vice president of the HOA board through sheer force of passive-aggressive emails. Brenda, her frumpy shadow, was the treasurer, equally venomous but with a penchant for documenting violations on her iPad like a deranged scrapbooker. They weren't real cops, of course, just volunteers with clipboards and a god complex, empowered by bylaws that let them issue citations and, in extreme cases, tow vehicles. Today, their target was Emily's innocent flag flip. They screeched to a halt behind the Harlan sedan, hazards blinking like accusatory eyes. Karen hopped out first, her sensible flat slapping the pavement, a laminated badge swinging from her neck, some knockoff from Amazon that read Community Safety Officer. Brenda followed, iPad at the ready, already tapping away. Emily froze, hand midway to the flag, her heart skipping as she recognized the duo from neighborhood watch meetings her parents dragged her to. Hi? She managed internally, but the words stuck in her throat. Karen marched up, eyes narrowed behind oversized sunglasses. "Young lady, do you live here? That flag has been up for over an hour. You know the rules. Curb appeal violations like this can lead to community-wide penalties." Emily's mind raced. She wasn't confrontational by nature. She was the kid who apologized to doors she bumped into. Backing up a step, she nodded quickly. "Oh, sorry, I just got home from soccer. I'll fix it right now." But Karen wasn't having it. In her world, apologies were admissions of guilt, and guilt meant escalation. "This isn't the first time we've seen negligence from this address. Your parents have been warned about the untrimmed hedges. Now this? We're issuing a formal notice, and if it's not resolved immediately, we'll have to involve the board for towing privileges." Brenda chimed in from behind, her voice a nasal whine, and possible liens. "We take this seriously." Panic flickered in Emily's chest as she glanced toward the house, willing her dad to appear. The flag was down now, but Karen stepped closer. Invading her space, clipboard thrust forward like a shield. "Sign here to acknowledge." Emily's hands trembled as she took the pen, but in her haste she brushed Karen's arm. Barely a graze. That was all it took. Karen's face twisted into a mask of outrage. "Did you just assault an officer?" "Brenda, get this on video!" What followed was a blur of motion that Emily would replay in nightmares for months. Karen lunged, grabbing Emily's wrist with surprising ferocity, twisting it until she yelped. Brenda dropped the iPad and joined in, her meaty hands clamping onto Emily's shoulder. Shoving her backward against the car hood, the impact was thunderous in Emily's world, her spine arching unnaturally. As Karen's knee drove into her lower back for leverage, a move she'd probably seen on some cop show rerun, Emily's breath exploded from her lungs, her body crumpling like a discarded soda can. Bones cracked audibly, 6 vertebrae fracturing in a symphony of agony that radiated from her midsection outward, splintering nerves and stealing her voice. She hit the driveway on her side, gasping, tears streaming as the world tilted into gray. Karen stood over her, chest heaving, oblivious or uncaring. "That'll teach you to respect authority, missy." Brenda fumbled for her phone, dialing what she thought was the real sheriff. But it was just the HOA hotline, her voice shrill. "We have a situation. Violent resident at 142 Oak Ridge." Inside the house, Lisa heard the commotion through the open window, her knife pausing mid-chop on the cutting board. "Mark, something's wrong outside." But Mark was already moving, his seal senses prickling like radar. He'd been in the garage cleaning his service pistol, a habit from deployments that Lisa teased him about but secretly appreciated in a neighborhood full of nosy eyes. The clatter of the mailbox, the screech of tires, it all coalesced into threat assessment in milliseconds. He stepped out the side door, Beretta 92FS holstered at his hip, legal carry permit tucked in his wallet like a talisman. Time slowed as he rounded the corner. There was Emily, his baby girl, curled fetal on the concrete, face contorted in pain that clawed at his soul. And towering over her, 2 women in civilian clothes, one barking into a phone, the other prodding Emily's leg with her foot as if testing a fallen branch. Red hazed Mark's vision, not blind rage, but the cold, calculated fury of a man who'd pulled triggers on far worse than this. His training flooded back, assess, engage, neutralize. These weren't uniforms, he recognized. No patrol cars, no real badges. Fakes. Imposters. And they'd just assaulted his daughter. His hand went to the holster, smooth as drawing breath, the Beretta clearing leather in under a second. He didn't shout warnings at first, protocol be damned in his mind. The first shot cracked the air, a round punching into the Prius's front tire with surgical precision, rubber hissing as it deflated. Karen and Brenda whirled, faces draining of color, mouths agape in twin O's of horror. Mark advanced, pistol leveled at the ground but ready, his voice a gravelly command that brooked no argument. "Step away from my daughter now." Another shot, this one shattering the Prius's windshield in a spiderweb of safety glass, shards raining down like brittle confetti. The women stumbled back, Karen tripping over the mailbox post, Brenda dropping her phone to claw at the car door. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone's Ring camera had caught the gunfire. Neighbors peeking from behind curtains like prairie dogs. Mark knelt by Emily, his free hand gentle on her shoulder, assessing the damage with a father's touch and a medic's eye. Her back was a roadmap of swelling already, breath shallow and ragged. "Hang on, kiddo. Dad's got you." He scooped her up effortlessly, her weight nothing compared to rucksacks in the Hindu Kush, and carried her toward the house, Beretta still in hand, eyes locked on the retreating figures. Karen scrambled into the Prius's passenger seat, Brenda gunning the engine despite the flat, the car lurching away in a pathetic fishtail. As Lisa burst from the front door, phone to her ear summoning an ambulance, Mark laid Emily on the couch, his mind already shifting gears. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Those women had crossed a line that no HOA bylaw could justify. And in Willow Creek, lines like that had a way of snapping back with vengeance. But as the paramedics arrived, lights flashing blue and red across the perfect lawns, Mark knew the real battle was just beginning. The fake cops would spin their tale of heroism, painting him as the aggressor, the loose-cannon ex-military nutjob terrorizing the block. Emily's cries echoed softly as they stabilized her, morphine dulling the edges of her pain, but nothing could touch the fire igniting in her father's chest. Revenge wasn't a word SEALs used lightly, but justice? That was the mission now. And missions for Mark Harlan always ended in victory, or so he told himself as the ambulance doors slammed shut, carrying his world away into the night. The sterile hum of the hospital corridor did little to soothe the storm raging inside Mark Harlan as he paced the waiting room, his boots wearing a groove in the linoleum like a predator caged. Emily had been rushed into surgery hours ago, 6 fractured vertebrae in her thoracic spine. The ER doc had explained in clipped tones, a constellation of breaks that could sideline her for months, maybe longer if nerves were pinched wrong. Shattered T7 through T12, hairline cracks radiating like fault lines from an earthquake. She'd need rods, fusion, physical therapy that would test a grown man's grit, let alone a teenage girl's. Lisa sat hunched in a vinyl chair, clutching a styrofoam coffee that had gone cold, her eyes red-rimmed but fierce. "Those monsters," she whispered, more to the air than him. "How do people get like that?" Mark didn't answer right away. His phone buzzed incessantly, neighbors' group texts blowing up with speculation. The HOA's emergency line leaving voicemails demanding a debriefing. He'd ignored them all, focusing instead on the surgeon's update. Emily was stable, out of the woods for now. But the road ahead was paved with painkillers and uncertainty. When he finally slipped into her recovery room, the sight of her, pale under the fluorescent glare, tubes snaking from her arms, a brace immobilizing her from hips to shoulders, nearly buckled his knees. She stirred as he took her hand, her voice a fragile thread. "Dad, it hurts." He squeezed gently, channeling the calm he'd faked in foxholes under fire. "I know him, but you're tough. Tougher than they know." Back in the waiting area, the real world intruded like a bad sequel. Willow Creek's gossip mill had churned overnight, fueled by Karen and Brenda's breathless recount to the actual sheriff's office. They'd arrived at the station in hysterics, Prius limping on its rim, spinning a yarn of unprovoked aggression. The delinquent teen had attacked them first, and then her psycho veteran father opened fire on innocent volunteers just doing their civic duty. Badges? They flashed their laminated fakes proudly, claiming official capacity under HOA bylaws that stretched community enforcement into vigilante territory. The deputy on duty, a rookie named Hargrove who moonlighted as the board's landscaper consultant, bought it hook, line, and sinker. By dawn, a warrant was floating around for Mark's arrest. Aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, reckless endangerment, the works. It hit him at 6 a.m., as he nursed a vending machine Danish in the hospital cafeteria. A pair of uniforms approached, badges glinting real this time, voices measured but firm. "Mr. Harlan, we need to ask you a few questions about last night." Mark didn't resist. He knew the drill: cooperate, document, counterpunch later. Handcuffs clicked softly as they let him out, Lisa's gasp echoing behind. The ride to the station was silent, his mind cataloging details. The fake badge's cheap plastic edges, the Prius's missing front plate from the dashcam footage he'd glimpsed on a neighbor's feed. At interrogation, Hargrove leaned in, coffee breath sour. "You shot at 2 women, Harlan. Over a flag? Your girl's got priors with the HOA, multiple warnings." Mark's jaw tightened, but his response was ice. "They assaulted my daughter, fractured her spine. I defended her." He laid it out methodically, the timeline, the shots into inanimate objects only, no intent to harm. Hargrove smirked, sliding photos across the table. The bullet-riddled Prius, Karen's minor bruises from her tumble. "Self-defense? With a military-grade piece? You're looking at 5 to 10 if the DA pushes." But Mark had been here before in war zones where rules bent under fire. He invoked his right to counsel, and by noon, a JAG buddy from his SEAL days, now a civilian attorney named Reyes, stormed the station like a one-man battalion. Reyes tore into the case like a shark-scenting chum. First stop, the HOA bylaws, poured over in a conference room that smelled of stale donuts. Turns out Willow Creek's patrol program was a rogue operation. Karen and Brenda self-appointed after a board vote that never passed quorum, their badges purchased online without sanction. No training, no liability insurance, just delusions of grandeur. Reyes subpoenaed the Prius's dash cam, hidden but active, and there it was. Crystal clear footage of the assault, Karen's knee driving home, Emily's crumple, no provocation beyond a trembling hand. "This isn't enforcement," Reyes growled to Hargrove, who suddenly looked queasy. "It's battery. Kidnapping even with the false badges." Word spread like wildfire through Willow Creek. Neighbors who'd cowered behind blinds now whispered in grocery aisles, forwarding the video clip that someone had leaked to the community Facebook group. HOA gone wild, one post read, racking up hundreds of shares. Karen and Brenda holed up in Karen's McMansion, curtains drawn, fielding calls from a suddenly interested media. A local news van parked outside by evening, reporter microphone thrusting like a bayonet. The board president, a portly ex-banker named Ellis, called an emergency meeting, but attendance was abysmal. Folks were done with the circus. Mark, released on his own recognizance by sunset, charges dropped pending review, drove straight back to the hospital. Reyes in tow. Emily was sitting up a fraction when he entered, morphine haze lifting to reveal a spark of her old fire. "Did they get in trouble, Dad?" Mark nodded, brushing a lock from her forehead. "More than trouble, kiddo. They're done." But as Lisa updated him on the home front, reporters sniffing around, the mailbox mysteriously spray-painted with "Fake cops suck," Mark felt the weight of unfinished business. The fractures in Emily's back were set, but the ones in their trust for the neighborhood, those would take longer to heal. And while the law might clip Karen and Brenda's wings, Mark knew justice in places like Willow Creek demanded a personal touch. Whispers from old SEAL contacts echoed in his mind. Recon, infiltrate, dismantle from within. The HOA board election was in 2 weeks, plenty of time to turn the tide. As night fell, casting long shadows across the parking lot, Mark stared out the window, plotting moves that would make those fake cops wish they'd stuck to bake sales. The war for Willow Creek had only just gone hot, and he was locked, loaded, and leading the charge. Sunlight filtered through the hospital blinds like hesitant fingers, poking at the edges of Emily Harlan's new reality, a world tilted by pain and a back brace that felt like a medieval corset forged from regret. 3 days post-surgery, and she was already itching to move, her legs tingling with phantom itches she couldn't scratch, nerves firing erratic signals from the fused vertebrae that now held her spine together like a patchwork quilt. Physical therapy started that morning. A perky nurse named Carla guiding her through cautious rolls on the bed, each shift sending jolts that blurred her vision. "Breathe through it, honey," Carla cooed, but Emily bit her lip bloody, thinking of soccer fields and sprints now reduced to distant dreams. Mark watched from the doorway, arms crossed, his presence a silent anchor. He'd barely left her side, sleeping in the recliner with one eye open, a habit from nights in the barracks. Outside, Willow Creek simmered like a pot left too long on the boil. The leaked dashcam footage had gone viral locally, shared from porches to PTA chats, the clip's grim ballet of assault racking up views on the evening news. "Suburban showdown, HOA volunteers accused of teen battery," the Chiron blared, anchorwoman's tone laced with that faux scandal thrill. Karen Whitaker's fortress home became a revolving door for process servers. Civil suits from the Harlans landed like mortar rounds. Assault, emotional distress, medical costs projected at 6 figures. Brenda Voss, less armored, cracked first, holed up at her sister's in the next town over. She spilled to a blogger over anonymized email, admitting the patrol was Karen's brainchild. A power grab after her husband left her for the yoga instructor. "We thought we were helping," Brenda whined in pixels. But Karen, she escalates everything. The HOA board, cornered, called a public forum in the community center. A sterile box of folding chairs and a podium scarred by years of gripes. Ellis, the president, mopped sweat from his brow under the AC's indifferent hum. Facing a crowd swelled beyond capacity, neighbors packed shoulder to shoulder, some waving printed bylaws like protest signs. Mark arrived fashionably late. Emily's absence his shield. Lisa manned the home front with takeout soup and reruns. Flanked by Reyes, who carried a briefcase bulging with depositions, Mark took a seat in the back, his gaze sweeping the room like a sniper's scope. Karen was there, front row, chin high in denial, her lawyer a Weasley type from the cut-rate firm downtown. Brenda sent regrets via email, but her ghost loomed. Ellis cleared his throat, voice quavering. Folks, this incident with the Harlans is regrettable, but let's remember our covenants protect property values. Booze rippled like wind through wheat. A retired teacher named Mrs. Patel stood, finger jabbing. Protect? You mean terrorize? That girl's in the hospital because your volunteers play dress-up cop. Murmurs swelled to shouts, accusations flying, secret fines, favoritism for board buddies, weed-free lawns. Mark let it build, timing his rise like a wave cresting. When Ellis called for order, he strode forward, not to the mic, but to the edge of the aisle, voice carrying without amplification, a seal's projection honed in sandstorms. I've served this country. Bled for freedoms you hide behind clipboards to erode, he began, eyes locking on Karen, who shrank in her seat. My daughter lies broken because two women decided a flag was worth a spine. Not enforcement, assault. And your board enabled it. Gasps, then applause, thunderous and sustained. Reyes stepped up, unveiling the bylaw's fine print on a projector. No provision for armed patrols, no badge authority, just vague compliance committees. This ends tonight, Reyes declared. Resignations, or we sue the association into oblivion. Every member named, every dollar clawed back. Panic fractured the board. Ellis stammered concessions, dissolving the patrol program, refunds for bogus fines, and independent audit. Karen bolted midway, her lawyer trailing, but not before Mark's parting shot. Run all you want. Courts have long memories. The meeting dissolved into chaos, alliances shattering like the Prius's glass, neighbors exchanging numbers for a reform petition, whispers of a class action suit bubbling up. By midnight, as Mark debriefed Lisa over lukewarm pizza in Emily's room, the tide had turned palpably. Show emails pinged, interim board formed, elections accelerated. Victory tasted bittersweet, laced with the antiseptic tang of hospital air, but shadows lingered. That night, as Emily dozed fitfully, Mark's phone lit with an anonymous text. Grainy photo of their house. Time-stamped hours ago. Tires slashed on Lisa's Corolla. Back off, scrawled in red across the garage door. Karen's desperation or aboard loyalists. His fist clenched around the device, old reflexes stirring. Recon was called for. Quiet drives past McMansions, notes on security cams, a favor called in from a PI buddy stateside. Emily stirred, murmuring about pain, and he pocketed the rage, focusing on her. Almost home free, Em. But home wasn't safe yet, and in the underbelly of suburbia, threats didn't announce with fanfare. As dawn crept in, painting the blinds gold, Mark plotted contingencies. Alarms, shotguns racked legally, a network of watchful eyes. The fake cops might be reeling, but cornered animals bit hardest, and Mark Harlan had faced worse than bites. He'd stared down death, and suburbia was just another battlefield waiting to be claimed. Weeks blurred into a fragile routine. The Harlan home transformed into a fortress of recovery and resolve. Emily's discharge brought cautious joy. Wheelchair-bound but home, her room a nest of pillows and get-well cards from teammates who snuck in contraband candy. Therapy sessions in the living room stretched her limits, gripping parallel bars installed by VA buddies, sweat beading as she hauled her weight inch by inch, vertebrae protesting with fire. Mark was her shadow coach, spotting her form with hands that had steadied brothers in arms under fire, his encouragement a low rumble. One more, Em. You've got the heart of a seal. Lisa orchestrated the logistics, meals pureed soft for swallowing ease, nights broken by pill schedules and ice packs. But beneath the domestic hum, tension coiled like a spring. Willow Creek's purge gained momentum. The interim board, stocked with reformers like Mrs. Patel, gutted the old guard. Bylaws rewritten to cap fines at $10. Patrols banned outright. Community safety redefined as actual neighborliness. Potlucks, not prosecutions. Karen's McMansion went up for sale overnight. A for sale sign stabbing the lawn like a surrender flag. Whispers of bankruptcy from mounting legal fees. Brenda, facing her own summons, flipped fully. testifying in a deposition that painted Karen as the architect of escalating operations, from anonymous complaints to the badge-buying spree on Etsy. She said it'd make us untouchable. Brenda sobbed on record. Mascara Rivers. The DA's office, embarrassed by Hargrove's rookie blunder, fast-tracked charges. Assault with a deadly weapon, Karen's knee qualifying, false impersonation, conspiracy to commit. Bail denied, flight risk, the judge ruled, eyeing Karen's packed U-Haul. Media frenzy peaked. A regional YouTuber, Suburbia Uncovered, dropped a 20-minute docu-rant. Dashcam footage intercut with Emily's hospital pics, blurred for privacy, racking 2 million views. Comments flooded, Navy dad for HOA president, and Karen's finally get got. Donations poured into a GoFundMe for Emily's rehab, $47K in a week, enough for adaptive soccer gear and a service dog she'd eyed. Mark fielded interview requests from his garage office, a converted space stacked with mission logs and now files on neighborhood watchdogs. But the vandalism lingered, a slashed tire here, a brick through a reformer's window there, traced by the PI to a cabal of old-board diehards, Ellis among them, skulking in a dingy VFW hall plotting countercoups. Mark's response was vintage operator. Infiltrate, disrupt, extract. Under cover of a block party invite, bait from Mrs. Patel, he slipped into the VFW, blending in fatigues from his closet, nursing a flat beer while ears tuned to treason. Ellis, red-faced and boozy, ranted to a half-dozen holdouts. Harlan thinks he's Rambo. We'll bury him in paperwork, leans on his house till he chokes. Mark memorized faces, slipped a bug under a table, vintage tech from his kit, then ghosted out, feeding the audio to Reyes. Dawn raid followed, sheriff's deputies, tipped clean, storming the hall mid-scheme, arrests for conspiracy and harassment piling on like dominoes. Ellis cuffed, blubbering about protecting values, but the jig was up. With the opposition crushed, Willow Creek exhaled. The accelerated election swept Mark in as board president, unopposed, a write-in landslide born of gratitude and grit. His first act, a bonfire of obsolete rules in the park, ashes scattering like exorcised demons. Emily wheeled to the front, lit the match, her smile fierce despite the ache. For all the flags, she quipped, and the crowd cheered. Rehab progressed, braces loosening, steps unassisted by month's end. Soccer drills adapted with a trainer who saw her potential unbroken. Mark balanced it all. Board meetings turned collaborative, property values holding sans tyranny. His SEAL network donating time for community drills, real safety, not show. Yet closure came quiet in a deposition room downtown. Karen, stripped of armor, hair limp, eyes hollow, faced Emily across a table, the girl's wheelchair a throne of triumph. No words exchanged, just stares. Karen's crumbling under truth's weight, Emily's steady with forgiveness she hadn't fully granted but chose to offer. The judge's gavel fell later. 5 years probation for Karen, community service scrubbing parks she'd once policed, restitution checks cut to the Harlans monthly. Brenda got house arrest, her iPad confiscated as evidence. As the courthouse doors swung shut on the saga, Mark carried Emily to the truck, Lisa's hand in his, the suburb stretching golden before them. Peace settled, hard-won and watchful. Emily scored her first assisted goal at a modified game, crowd roaring as if she'd conquered worlds, which in a way she had. Mark, ledger balanced on threats neutralized, found sleep unbroken for the first time in months. Willow Creek bloomed anew, flags flying free, neighbors nodding hellos sans suspicion. The fractures healed, not seamless but strong, a testament to spines unbroken by petty storms. And in the quiet nights, Mark cleaned his Beretta one last time, not for war but for the peace it had secured. Suburbia tamed, what a wild ride, right? If this story of standing up to HOA bullies fired you up, drop a like to fuel more takedowns, subscribe and ring that bell for weekly doses of justice served hot. We've got Karens in our sights. Share with a neighbor who needs the laugh or the lesson, and comment below. What's your craziest HOA horror? See you in the next one. Stay fierce out there.